Okay, so let's try to unpack this a little bit. What if one of the biggest names in music wasn't just, hiding secrets,
Yeah.
but maybe orchestrating something far, far darker than anyone really imagined? Today's deep dive, we're focusing on this really chilling new civil lawsuit. It's filed by a former male escort, Clayton Howard,
Right.
and it's against Sean Diddy Combs and also Cassie Ventura.
Yeah, that's the one making waves right now.
Absolutely. And Howard's core allegations, they are truly disturbing. He's accusing them of drug-fueled manipulation, these really twisted freak-off parties,
Right.
and profound psychological control. It just paints this picture of a totally toxic lifestyle, just sort of hidden behind all the luxury.
Yeah, masked by glamour.
Exactly. And here's where I think it gets really interesting. This isn't just, another celebrity scandal.
No, it feels different.
It really does. It's a story that's so disturbing, so layered. It honestly could dismantle reputations. It could completely flip our understanding of, victimhood and complicity.
Yeah.
And expose this hidden side of fame that, well, frankly, few have dared to question until now.
And what's truly insightful here, I think, is how this case doesn't just point fingers at alleged individual acts.
Yeah.
It really shines a light on the sophisticated mechanisms of control that might be at play.
Mechanisms of control.
Yeah, we often think of power as just, financial clout,
Yeah,
right?
sure.
But Howard's claims really highlight the psychological manipulation, the kind of thing that can happen when fame and vulnerability intersect.
Yeah.
It forces us really to reevaluate how we define vicar and perpetrator within these very complex power dynamics.
That's such a crucial point. It makes you ask, how does a dynamic like this get so deeply embedded, so hidden, that it's only now, after all this time, starting to come out?
Exactly.
So our mission for this deep dive, for you listening, is really to pull out the most important nuggets of knowledge from the sources we've looked at. We want to help you understand the details of these specific allegations, sure, but also their broader implications, for the music industry, maybe even beyond. Let's get into it.
Okay, so Clayton Howard, a name many people are just starting to hear. He's filed this civil suit, and he's alleging he was lured into this lifestyle that, it looked luxurious, glamorous on the surface,
Right.
but was, in his words, just truly toxic underneath. He claims he was emotionally manipulated, drugged, exploited, specifically at these private parties where apparently every moral line was just blurred, completely erased.
And what seems critical to understand, according to Howard's claims anyway, is that these weren't just typical Hollywood parties getting a bit wild.
Okay.
He alleges they were actually calculated, drug-fueled freak-offs, as he calls them, highly organized, exploitative gatherings specifically engineered to break down people's boundaries they're resistant.
Wow, engineered. That's a strong word.
It is. And he paints this picture of Diddy and Cassie actually orchestrating these events, leveraging their fame, using substances, employing psychological tactics, all to control and, degrade the people involved.
It really raises the question of how someone could get drawn into that kind of web in the first place.
It certainly sounds less like, just hedonistic fun and more like you said, calculated, like a deliberate form of psychological warfare.
That's the allegation, yeah.
Howard claims he was promised things, opportunity, protection, only to be, in his view, used and then just discarded. The emotional toll, the physical toll he says he endured. It became unbearable. He talks about breakdowns, trauma, long-term damage.
And this brings us to a really complex, maybe the most complex part of this, Cassie's alleged involvement.
Right, because her story has been out there too.
Exactly. Howard claims she wasn't just, there. He alleges she was an active participant. He specifically states Cassie helped lure others in, even going so far as to recruit people, reassure them, comfort victims.
Comfort them.
Yeah, that's the claim. Comfort them, only to then lead them deeper into what he describes as the exact same nightmare she herself once accused Diddy of creating for her.
Wow. Okay, that directly challenges the public perception of her, doesn't it, as purely a survivor?
It completely challenges it. It suggests a far more nuanced and, frankly, unsettling potential role. If true, of course.
It's deeply unsettling to even consider. If these claims hold any water, it just raises these profound questions about, could she have been both, victim and participant?
Right, that duality.
And how many other people might have been pulled into this alleged cycle, maybe under some illusion of safety created by her presence?
It's a disturbing thought.
And we should remember, this lawsuit isn't happening in a vacuum, right?
Not at all.
It comes after this whole wave of other really serious accusations against Diddy, things involving coercion, abuse, even sex trafficking allegations, some of which were settled pretty quietly.
That context is definitely important. It adds weight, or at least context, to Howard's claims. And beyond just the claims themselves, Howard's decision to actually speak out now feels significant, because his voice is essentially breaking a silence that many others, he alleges, have kept out of just profound fear.
Okay, so let's talk about that fear. If that fear kept others silent, allegedly, what's changed? Why now? Why is Howard speaking out at this particular moment?
Well, according to his legal team, the calculation is basically that Diddy's power, it's finally cracking. You've got the federal raids, the increasing media pressure, just the sheer weight of public scrutiny. They believe all that has started to chip away at his empire, his influence.
So the shield is down, potentially.
That seems to be the feeling. Howard states pretty clearly that the fear that once kept him silent is gone now. And he feels it's time to hold people accountable.
And, naturally, we have to include the other side, Diddy's team. They vehemently deny all of this, all these allegations.
Standard procedure, really.
They're suggesting Howard is just looking for attention, maybe money, clout, the usual counter-arguments.
Right, the disgruntled accuser seeking payout narrative.
Exactly. But Howard insists, his motivation isn't about getting famous, it's about bringing truth to light. Truth about a world he claims has just thrived in darkness for way too long.
A world kept hidden.
Yeah. So, where does this leave us? What does this all mean? If we just recap quickly. These are harrowing allegations from Howard, claims painting this picture of intense psychological warfare. And then there's Cassie Ventura's alleged complicity, which, as we said, starkly challenges her survivor narrative. It paints a really complex, deeply unsettling potential reality.
Very much so.
He's coming forward now, he says, because he senses this fundamental shift in Diddy's power, citing scrutiny, the federal actions, factors that have eroded the fear that allegedly kept so many silent.
And his stated motivation is truth.
Right, purely about truth, even as Diddy's team denies everything and questions his motives, suggesting he wants attention or money.
So if we step back now, try to see the bigger picture here. Howard's lawsuit, it feels like it's about more than just what allegedly happened behind those closed doors, right?
It seems that way.
It feels like it's about the system. The system that potentially allowed it to persist, maybe unchallenged for so long. The power of celebrity image, the money involved, the alleged code of silence. All of it, if true, could have allowed abuse to continue unchecked. It created an environment where maybe accountability just seemed impossible.
It really makes you consider those immense power structures that are at play in industries like that.
Definitely. And this brings us to an important question, something for you, our listener, to really consider. Howard warns there are more victims out there, people still trapped in silence. So the question is, if more people do come forward now, could Diddy's empire actually collapse completely, regardless of whether every single detail is proven in a court of law?
A court of public opinion, perhaps?
Perhaps. And what does this potential reckoning signal? As one man's voice maybe turns into an echo, joined by others, what does that signal about the future? About accountability for the powerful, often at the expense of those who felt voiceless for so long?
Those are powerful questions, really profound things to think about. We definitely encourage you to reflect on these considerations raised by this deep dive into this source of